happens when you make a promise that you can't keep and the entire economy hangs in the balance? The biggest political fight of the year is going to be about the debt ceiling. We have about 6 months to reach an agreement on this until we default on our debt, which would cause a huge recession and probably a global financial crisis. So, 2 countries in the world have a debt ceiling, Denmark and the United States. We've hit ours. That means we can't borrow any more money unless we raise the debt ceiling, which would let us borrow more. Meanwhile, we're still spending more than we take in, and in about 6 months, we won't have enough money to cover our bills, at which point we have a few choices. We could not pay our bills, that's default, or we could raise the debt ceiling to keep borrowing, or we could balance the budget by raising taxes or cutting spending or some combination. Raising the debt ceiling is what we usually do. We did it 3 times in the last presidency. But remember that big speaker fight we had back in January when McCarthy was having a hard time finding the votes to become speaker? Well, one of the promises he made to the holdouts was that he wouldn't ask them to raise the debt ceiling until he gave them a budget that would balance over the next 10 years. Here's the thing. That's not going to happen. The amount we're coming up short, it's a lot. You could cut the entire defense budget to 0, spend nothing on the military, and it still wouldn't balance the budget. You'd still have hundreds of billions to go. The idea that we could do this by finding a little over here and a little over there, folks, absolutely not. Not even close. If you notice, people who campaign on balancing the budget never tell you how they're going to do it, because if they did, it would probably upset the vast majority of you. But now, Speaker McCarthy has made a promise to pass a plan that does that. He also said it won't involve raising taxes on anyone and won't involve any cuts to Medicare or Social Security, which are the 2 programs we spend the most money on. He hasn't quite said no cuts to defense, but do we think he's going to propose big cuts to defense? Probably not. So if that's your starting point and you can't touch any of that stuff, then to balance the budget, you would almost have to zero out the entire rest of the budget, everything else we spend money on. Transportation, education, energy, science, environment, housing, border control, air traffic control, healthcare for 40 million children of low-income families. You could eliminate all of that, and you aren't even 2/3 of the way there. So here's where things stand. Speaker McCarthy needed some people in a very difficult moment, so he made them a promise that he won't be able to keep. And the question is, what happens then? Do those people flip out and blow this whole thing up and cause a default, which everyone agrees would be an economic disaster? Or can we sit down and figure this thing out in a way that is at least semi-realistic, preferably as soon as possible?